Welcome to the Honest Dog Breeder Podcast with me, your host, Julie Swan, where each week we dive in to discuss all things dog breeding so you can build a breeding business you love, producing dogs that fulfill their owners' dreams. I believe you can have an honest dog breeding program that also pays the bills. So throw those pods in your ears while you're cleaning kennels. I'd love to join you. I've been thinking about something kind of strange. When a contractor pulls into your driveway in a nice new truck, most people feel relieved. You think, oh, good, he's professional. He must stay busy. He probably isn't the cheapest contractor, but it looks like he knows what he's doing. The truck becomes evidence that he is successful, and his success makes us trust him a little more. We don't usually look at the truck and think, wow, he must have charged his customers too much. We assume he ran a good business. But I'm about to take a cruise that the dogs paid for. And I noticed that saying that publicly feels different. The dogs paid for my cruise. It wasn't cheap either. Even as I say that, there is this tiny part of me that feels like I should explain it. I should reassure you that the dogs were cared for, the puppies received what they needed, and their owners were educated and supported. All of that is true, but why do I feel the need to say it? The contractor doesn't have to explain that he finished all his customers' houses before he bought the truck. We already assume he handled the work he was paid to do. Why don't we make the same assumption about breeders? When a dog trainer posts pictures from a vacation, most people are happy for her. They might even say, good, she needed a break. No one asks whether she really loves dogs because dog training money helped pay for the trip. A groomer can buy a nice car. A veterinarian can have a beautiful home. A dog photographer can make a good living. We understand that these people provide a service, earn money, and then use that money in their lives. Yet when breeders benefit, people seem to hesitate. And honestly, breeders hesitate too. We have some strange rules around breeding. A couple of weeks ago, I released an episode about where the adopt-don't-shop argument gets things wrong. I talked about why honest breeders are necessary and why honest breeding has to be sustainable. If all the thoughtful breeders burn out or leave, people do not stop wanting puppies. They simply get them somewhere else. I believe that. But I also think breeders have internalized some strange ideas about what sustainability is allowed to look like. It seems perfectly acceptable for the breeding program to pay for dog food, veterinary care, health testing, fencing, kennels, and another breeding dog. Those are respectable expenses. Once the money pays for something that is clearly for the breeder or her family, though, we start to feel like we need to defend it. A litter might cover the mortgage, fund the kids, build savings, or pay for a cruise. Why is that the point where it becomes questionable? The dogs were cared for. The buyers received what they were promised. The breeder did the work. Why should the money only be allowed to circulate inside the dog program forever? That doesn't really make sense when you stop and look at it. What are we trying to prove? When breeders talk about money, we often rush to explain how much everything costs. We mention the stud fee, the health testing, the food, the supplies, the vet bills, and all the things that could go wrong. These expenses matter, but sometimes it feels like we are presenting evidence for our defense. We want people to know we didn't make too much. There's an old line in breeding that says there's no money in breeding if you do it right. People say it almost proudly. But what does it actually prove? It doesn't tell us how the puppies were raised, whether they were matched thoughtfully, or how well the breeder supported the buyers. It only tells us there wasn't much money left. Somewhere along the way, financial struggle became reassuring in the dog world. If the breeder isn't benefiting, people feel safer believing she must be doing it for the right reasons. But those are two separate things. Making money does not tell us that a breeder is careless, just as losing money does not tell us that she is responsible. We have to look at the actual program. The financial expectation is also only one part of it. Breeders are also supposed to love every minute of the work. Now, I love breeding. There are parts of it that are incredibly meaningful to me. Watching puppies develop is fascinating. I love seeing their personalities emerge, matching one with a family and realizing later that the fit was exactly right. But plenty of the work is not enjoyable. Cleaning diarrhea isn't fun. Neither is the endless laundry or having an entire day controlled by a litter. Sometimes I don't want a dog climbing on me or following me from room to room. There are days when I want to close the office door and reset by myself. At other times, I want to leave for a few days and not have anything or anyone depending on me. I love my kids too, but sometimes I want a weekend away with Bill. There are moments when I don't want anyone asking me a question, touching me, needing a snack, or standing in the doorway of my office. No one hears that and assumes I don't love my children. We understand that loving someone does not mean wanting constant access to them. Why would dogs be different? Wanting a break does not mean I love the dogs less. It may simply mean I have been responsible for something that requires a lot from me. And honestly, the goal is not to become better at pushing through exhaustion. The goal is to build enough margin, help, and breathing room into the program that breeding does not consume everything you have. I should be able to love the dogs, enjoy much of the work, and still close the door sometimes. I should be able to take a trip without the entire program falling apart. That is not a failure of commitment. That is what a sustainable breeding program should make possible. Maybe we've confused passion with payment. I think breeders sometimes fall into the trap of believing that because we love parts of the work should not count. Raising puppies is treated as its own reward because we enjoy them. Researching pedigrees and planning breedings seem less like labor because we find them interesting. Long-term buyer support becomes something we are expected to absorb because we genuinely care about the families. But the contractor may enjoy building houses. The trainer may genuinely love helping dogs. The photographer may love taking beautiful pictures. We still expect them to get paid. Passion explains why someone chose the work or the industry. It doesn't make their time feel free. It certainly doesn't mean the work should only be allowed to benefit everyone except the person doing it. When I work with new breeders, one of the first questions they ask is, what should I charge? Sometimes the question is, what do I need to do if I want to charge more? And it's almost like everyone believes there's this invisible formula somewhere. Health testing adds a certain amount. Raising the puppies in the home adds something else. A puppy curriculum, health guarantee, and lifetime support all go into the breeder calculator, and eventually it gives you the correct price. There are some generalities, but there isn't a simple formula. And I think breeders are not always looking only for the correct price. Sometimes they are looking for the price that they are morally allowed to charge. They want a number that they can say without people assuming they are greedy. They want to earn enough to make the work worthwhile without crossing some invisible line where others begin questioning how much they care about the dogs. When they cannot find a clear answer, many choose the safer number. Staying a little lower attracts less scrutiny. That is what I mean by the guilt discount. It is not necessarily a discount you intentionally offer to the buyer. It is the money you give up because earning more feels like it could change how people see you. A lower price becomes a quiet way of saying, see, I'm not doing this for the money. But does it actually protect your reputation? People can question your breeding decisions at any price. One person may think you breed too often, while someone else thinks that you do not breed enough to have real experience. Your puppies will be too expensive for some people and suspiciously inexpensive to others. There is no number that guarantees everyone will understand your motives, so perhaps the price was never the best place to prove them. I would rather look at the program. How are the dogs being cared for? What thought goes into the breeding decisions? How are the puppies raised and placed? Are the buyers prepared and supported? Does the breeder remain responsible after the puppy leaves? That tells me far more about her than whether she took a cruise. The question I want you to ask is, what is your breeding program allowed to do? I think this is worth considering. What is your breeding program allowed to give back to your life? Perhaps you have always felt comfortable using the money for another litter or improving the property, but paying yourself feels different. Maybe covering the mortgage seems acceptable while using that same income for something fun creates guilt. Why? My dogs paid for my cruise. They were taken care of. Their puppies were taken care of. Their owners were supported. Then the work created something wonderful for my family. I don't think those outcomes compete with each other. That is what I want a healthy breeding program to do. It should work well for the dogs and owners while also bringing something good back into the breeder's real life. This is part of why I created the Elevated Breeder Workshop. When I say we are going to build the 4 pieces that allow you to raise your puppy price by $1,000, I know the number can bring up more than a practical question. Of course, you may wonder whether buyers will pay it and whether your program can support it. Those are fair questions, and we're going to work through them. But I think there may be another question underneath those concerns. What happens if you raise your price and it works? What if your breeding program becomes meaningfully more profitable? Would you let that money improve your life, or would you feel like you needed to apologize for it? Elevated Breeder is not about putting a bigger number on the same program and hoping buyers accept it. It's about organizing the pieces behind your program so the value makes sense to the right buyer and the price no longer feels like a number standing out there by itself. Most breeders already have the pieces. They simply are not working together clearly enough yet. Another $1,000 per puppy might improve the dog setup, create an emergency fund, or make it possible to hire someone for a few hours each week. In another program, it could pay for the kids' activities, or finally allow the family to experience some benefit from all the time breeding requires. It could even pay for a cruise. Inside Elevated Breeder, we are going to build the business behind a higher price so it feels supported, professional, and honest. You can learn more and sign up at honestdogbreeder.com/elevated breeder. The dogs paid for my cruise, and I plan to enjoy it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Honest Dog Breeder podcast with me, your host, Julie Swan. I hope to see you inside Elevated Breeder. If you found this episode helpful, please tap that like button. It helps me better understand you and supports the channel. If you're a current or aspiring dog breeder, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel to be notified when new videos come out.